Welcome to Your Soul Wisdom, hosted by Yana Amor Manocas. In each episode, we invite you on a transformative journey delving into the profound mysteries and wisdom of the soul. Join us as we explore a wide array of spiritual topics and sacred practices that nurture and heal the soul, from reincarnation and soul contracts to the enigmatic experiences of womb alchemy and astral travel. Our discussions are designed to enlighten, inspire, and deepen your understanding of your own soul's journey. With Your Soul Wisdom, nothing is off limits. I'll never get over that intro, you guys. And Rachel's arms up. It just brings me all the joy that I will ever need. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We have a very special episode on Your Soul Wisdom. And before we get going, if you haven't already, go ahead and click or take a picture of our new QR code right above my head over here. This will take you to our new channel, our new Your Soul Wisdom channel on YouTube. There's so many goodies on there, just so much information. It's just starting to fill up. It's so exciting. We will at some point stop streaming on this channel and be exclusive to the new channel, so you want to join. Also, if you haven't joined already the collective, the link is below on the screen, but there is also another beautiful QR code. Go ahead and take a picture of that, get all the information. It is like amazing. Okay, I really want to just get straight into this. And so, Rachel, get us. Oh, hello, you guys. I almost messed up my host duties. You can see there's 6 of us today. That is because we are joined by fabulous Steffany, who is very much behind the scenes. Steffany helps us do all our reels and our branding, and she just lights up our life. Okay. She makes our life easy and joyful and all these things. And so in conversation with Steffany, it was like, you know, when you meet people and you're like, oh, they're wonderful, they're kind, they're smart, but then like you kind of dig in a little more and you're like, oh my God, there is a whole story behind this. And so, Rachel, why don't you like get us into, because you guys had this beautiful conversation a bit already.
Look, we had a 2-hour conversation. I swear to God, we'd still be talking now if I didn't have to go. Like, it was extraordinary. I don't really even understand how Steffany has done what she's done in her lifetime, but she is absolutely extraordinary. And, you know, I was prepping us all before. I'm like, you know what, guys, we don't want to get bogged down in the timeline. I mean, we need to have some kind of knowledge. But I'm so interested in, as we progress through Steffany's life experience, you know, how she was feeling. What was her connection to whatever she was seeking, that kind of thing. So I don't know, Steffany, I think we have to start at the very beginning of the family you were born into and how many siblings and all that kind of stuff. And what was the spiritual environment at home?
Okay, so I am one of 3 girls. I'm the middle child. So take that as you will. And yeah, so from a very young age, like I always had awareness of, you know, faith and stuff. My mom was very diligent about that, teaching us, you know, out of the Bible and teaching us how to pray. Like she would pray with me every night. And from that grew this just fascination, I guess, with faith. And I don't remember my life before faith, you know, and something. And just whether it was, you know, those simple little like bedtime prayers, or like as I got older, it was Christianity, and we'll get to that. But yeah, it was always something that was present in my life to a very significant degree. And
was there a particular flavor of Christianity that you were brought up with?
Later on, yes, we were in a more like fundamental Baptist church. And
but at this stage, as a small child, you were just general, you know, everyday, you know, I'm trying to say like everyday variety Christian, no specific.
Yeah. So 'cause my parents were raised Catholic, and then my mom stepped away from that. And then she was on her own journey to find truth and whatnot, and that's kind of what she raised us with. And so
were you guys going to church? I only
not when I
ask
was
because
young. No.
so his spirituality was entirely at home with your family.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
and so that's where I was kind of going to get to, like, the turning point. So I was always bullied in school, and when I was in grade 4, so I know we're dealing with different areas of the world here, so that I was 8, 9 during that year. I was actually assaulted on my school bus. And after that, I was just like, I never want to go back to school. And my mom had also been looking into homeschooling around the same time. And so that day was the last day I ever went to school. My sister wanted to continue going to school. My baby sister was too young for school still. But eventually, yeah, my mom pulled us out and we got into homeschooling. And that's kind of what introduced us to the more, I guess, Christian atmosphere, because in homeschool groups, they're primarily Christians. So from that, eventually we started going to church when I was about in grade 6. And that's kind of where I started building that sense of like community with, I guess, like-mindedness, and trying to like develop my own sense of self and faith within this like greater scope.
I'm sorry to keep interrupting you, but just
No
to give us an update at this stage, whatever your spiritual connection, what would you have been saying it was a spiritual connection to Jesus at this stage?
For me, my focus was always just like God, the Father in general, like even from a younger age, like Jesus just never really like resonated with me. And one of the, I guess, the core principles that my parents did raise me with is that you don't pray to Jesus, you pray to God through Jesus. And so that was kind of something that I always held with me, that it was, there was the one creator overall, and that was our main source.
Did you feel like you had a strong connection to God at this stage?
Yes.
Like even as a young child, you were.
Yeah, as a young
did
child,
you feel
like
protected by God, or tell us your experience. Protected by God, guided by God. How does a young child, a very spiritual young child, experience this?
So I think that's actually an interesting point, because given that I was like bullied so much throughout all of my younger like public school years, that was actually kind of an ongoing, I just had like this ongoing conversation with God. It was just like always open. I was just always chatting with him. And that continued like through my high school years, through my college years. Like it was never like an official, like a formal prayer, more or less. It was just, I would have these thoughts and I'd throw them up kind of thing. And it was just always like a very like open communication, I guess. And it's just the one thing that helped me feel grounded and loved, especially like amongst, my peers and whatnot, even though that would later on become a very big point of contention, like obviously throughout my high school years and whatnot, because it was such like a real experience to me. And I didn't understand how other people, in my age range and stuff, didn't feel that, even if they were a part of my different like, youth groups or, whatever it was that I was at the time, because it was like for them, they could turn it on and off. Whereas for me, it was just everything that I was, like I didn't know my life without that open line of communication, which again, once like later down the road, there's like a whole thing with kind of what happened there and like my journey out of Christianity. But yeah, overall, I felt very like protected and loved, and just had like this open access, I guess. That makes sense.
When bad things happen to you, and I'm sorry, I do want to not let us just get stuck on this bit, because although this is already setting Steffany up to be extraordinary, this is not the extraordinary parts of the story. What happened? Like, what was your relationship with God when things went wrong in your childhood, or things that you wouldn't prefer, or whatever, however we say it happened? How did you contextualize that with your relationship with God as a child?
I just kind of always had this piece that ultimately he knew what was going on, right? Okay. And that there was this greater picture, and that there was always something to learn from it. Like, yes, obviously certain things would upset me, and I mean, I'm still a human with very deep emotions, but just kind of having that sense of assuredness, I guess, that, whatever this is will make sense at some point.
I'm getting more of an idea how you got everything done, Steffany, honestly. What our viewers don't know is that you have 5 children and you're a single parent. To kick it off, ladies, for how much this lady gets done. And now I'm saying to see how it could be possible to do it with the kind of grace and patience that you do. Anyway, sorry, I feel like I'm really dominating this against the other ladies too. So pop in with questions.
Well, I want you to continue because I want to hear this story because I feel like I've got like a little bit of breadcrumbs and I need more.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess my early teen years in high school is really where that started developing. And like I was curious, but I didn't understand a lot of the faith thing. Like, people would bring up stuff like the rapture and I was like, what was that? And then I was introduced to like the Left Behind series, and that, which is all Kirk Cameron did movies. It was like a whole thing, and it was about the end times. And that's kind of where my focus, just in my teen years and like early 20s and stuff was just all like the oh my god, now I can't speak, eschatological, which is the end time stuff. Like, so with that though came this impending sense of doom, that I never realized, but it was always like I had to do these things because what if the rapture comes and I haven't done this, that, and the other thing? What if I haven't told, so talking to people about my faith who were close to me was always like a very important thing. But then going up to strangers, like when it came to like the little open air evangelism things, I couldn't do that because to me, it's like, if I don't have a relationship with this person, I can't check in and see if they're okay. I can't answer their questions. I can't, have that. And so that was one of those things that even from a young age, like I was thinking like grade 7s, 12, 13 was one of the first times I was ever introduced to this thought. And I was just like, this feels so wrong. How can we just share this with people and then just leave them on their own? Like they're going to need help, like I'm just a kid. I need to learn how to do this stuff. And, but it was also that kind of really sparked my personal study. Like I really just started getting deep into the Bible, like at that age, just on my own. I had a few because I was obsessed with like the different translations and whatever, and I would compare things and see how all of that worked. And then this definitely grew into my high school years. And once again, I was homeschooled through all of this, but like my parents made sure that we did like extracurriculars. I had various like youth groups I would go to. So I was in constant communication with like other kids my age. And there were very few I could actually have in-depth conversations about this, my faith journey with. And yeah, so that's where high school became really jarring to me, I guess, because I had made so much of my life, like this was just so important to me. And now I was hearing from other kids, it was just like a side thing, like, oh, if I need help, I'll go to God. And it wasn't really their whole being, or it was stuff that their parents told them to do. And like, for me, that was never like, my parents didn't have to force me to read my Bible. They didn't have to force me to go to church or anything. Like I just did this willingly. And so that's why it's like, for me, my faith was always my own. Seeking that truth was always just who I was, like I had endless questions because I just wanted to get down to the bottom of, the whys and hows all the world works and everything. So yeah, so high school, that was a huge turning point for me because I had been going to this one youth group for a few years and I had some really solid friends. And then once I started getting into my woman form, that's kind of where everything shifted because I went from being very much a little girl to being a woman in less than a summer. And dealing with that, because that's one of the biggest focuses. This was like, I don't know how it is for other generations, but I was born in the 80s. Our generation of Christianity and youth group, it was all purity culture. It was all like focusing on the, no sex before marriage, no fooling around, nothing. And also the girls had to be modest. And if a boy had an impure thought, it was your fault. And so This is where a lot of the, I guess, my self-image issues, my self-worth, all of that stuff happened in high school because of this culture. And let me just like make a disclaimer. This is not stuff that was being taught in my home. This was at our youth groups and stuff. And this was just a general thing. You talk to any kid around my age that was raised in this, they will tell you the same thing. And with that comes, if you make a mistake in that regard before you're married, you're now worthless. And so some of us took that to the extreme, right? And we were very, very, very good girls. And then there were the other girls who made a mistake and completely went off the deep end. And it was so heartbreaking to watch these things because you're in this as a kid. And then you're also kind of more or less brainwashed into thinking, like, how could this girl do this? Like, she's like, and it's just that mentality of getting the girls against each other instead of like lifting each other up. And this is where, just my whole perspective on what it is to be a woman really just shifted. And
well, kind of.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Back off a minute. This is my question. This is my question for a second. So youth groups that I'm familiar with, not through my church, but just Christianity in general, are they volunteers in this instance?
Yes.
Or were they
except for the youth pastor?
Exactly. How dangerous? I just want to I'm just going to throw it out there. If you are sending your children to some sort of youth group, I would be sitting in on those conversations because it is an actual very manipulative, dangerous space if you are not filtering who is teaching the material to your children. I'm just saying they're at an impressionable age. It can be very dangerous. I just wanted to say it. Like, Amanda.
Amanda's distracted by her computer and sound.
Oh,
is my sound gone?
No, you're still there.
I mean,
no, we can hear you. Yep,
we can hear you.
Say it loud, say it proud.
Great. So, so I was going to say that. Do you remember when we were having the conversation I don't know if it was in the spiritual bullshit conversation or when we sent out the reel about how I was saying about women in religion, about how we've either been wiped out or how women have been in the way, like how you were just saying, Steffany, about how, in a sense, because all the responsibility has been placed on the girls.
Yeah.
So if they were the ones to step out of line, but they've got to step out of line with someone. Do you know what I mean? And so all of that's been placed on us. We carry all of that. And as young women, what a terrible, terrible, in a sense, burden. And how that could literally, I think it like limits your experience within life. It's everything. Because as you said, you either go one way or the other. And if you go off the deep end, then they really go off the deep end. So you're really going to rebel. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's like...
And also,
but it's
like, I was born in the
way.
80s. I was born in the 80s, right? And I can't remember specifically being taught what you were saying, Steffany, but absolutely it resonates wholeheartedly with, so it's almost even, it's just ingrained into you. It's within you, without even having a conscious memory of being taught all of these things. And so, I find it really interesting and really disturbing because it's just so wrong.
And it's like also being aware, because I also grew up, I'm a relic and grew up in the 80s too. And it's hard to do it.
Hello.
I know, I mentally identify as a relic.
I think, thank God I was in the 70s. I was off the deep end the whole time.
I know. Well, that's
wow. Well, I was in the 60s. So, I
would have been there too in the 80s. The 80s was a hard time, okay? It was a hard time to grow up in the 80s. Okay, so it is hard to stop that perpetuating kind of mentality with our children, because I'm also like, are those shorts too short? Because we know what meant, and I'm like, whoa, Kylie, like it's not their responsibility. You know what I mean? It's hard to kind of,
It's a difficult
They can dress
balance.
for the weather.
Yeah.
It is a difficult balance.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing too. There is no balance in that world, right?
Yep.
It's their way or the highway kind of thing. Like, and I get not every sect of Christianity is the same. And this is not me like dogging on Christians as people in general. It's more the core beliefs that are there and the very religious. But even this one church that we were a part of wasn't super conservative. Like, this is one of my earlier experiences with it. And I did have a good group of friends, but like I said, once that shift happened for me, none of my actions mattered anymore. It was like, because I looked a certain way, and even though I was very conscious about dressing modest, all the little murmurs still happened, and I didn't understand it, because I was like, if people knew these, if they knew me, why do they believe that I would do these things? And then it got to a point where, because I would hear these things and it was just like, you know, stupid rumors. It's like, well, I'm not doing that. I'm not sleeping around. I don't have a boyfriend. I've never kissed anybody. But the point that really got was when my youth pastor and his assistant called me into their office, because they had heard rumors that I was anorexic. Because this is the thing, I was always very slim because I was active. But then with that, coupled with the fact that, like, and I mean, things are different after you have kids, things shift a little bit. I was very well endowed on this very, very petite figure. And so they took that as ammo to say she's a whore and she's got an eating disorder. And so they took me as, yeah. And so I was about 16 at this point, and they took me into it. And I left, and I told my mom, and then that was it. I wasn't going back there. That was just like, and like, obviously she was rightfully, I couldn't imagine if somebody said that to me, you know? And so my mom, she had no idea about all of this stuff that had been going on, because like, I wanted to try, I've always been somebody who wants to try to handle things themselves, right? Like if I have a problem with logic and reasoning, you can solve that with people. And sometimes you just can't. And this was one of those times. It was just like, I have been doing, you know, I was a camp counselor in this church since I was 12 years old for their day camps and stuff. Like I was always the one who was, you know, acting on my faith, more or less. And so when that happened, I was just like, how could you? When you've seen me since I was, you know, a kid growing in all of this, and this is still your approach to me. And not only that, they should have never done that without, you know, talking to my parents about their concern. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just
to your parents.
Definitely, honestly,
weird.
yeah.
Like,
this is what it's like talking to you. It's like you're telling me all the things I sort of vaguely know or are familiar with, but living the experience with you and actually hearing it is truly horrifying. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I'm 54 years old. Today I learnt with you what it's like to have men project things onto you. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know that. Yeah. Of course I know that, but I have never understood it like you have just exampled it to me. It gives me goosebumps. It's horrifying. Anyway, sorry that I keep interrupting. Keep going.
No, it's one of those things too. I didn't even like realize the effect of that until I decided to leave Christianity, you know, and I started thinking about all of this stuff and, you know, like doing my writing and going through therapy and realizing like so much of the issues I had with my self-worth stemmed from those, you know, youth group experiences, and then later like my Bible college years and all of this stuff, because so much weight is put on a woman being perfect. But at the same time, they tell you that whole time, there's nothing you will ever do to be good enough to get into heaven. So it's like this conflict of interest. They're telling you you need to be good while also telling you you'll never be good enough. You know, and that was kind of a light bulb moment for me recently, because like, you know, kind of like that whole like feeling like a failure and all of this stuff. And like, I get everybody gets to that point, but I also understand like for some of us, we deal with that a lot more heavily. And I know there's a lot of people who I went through that Bible college with who went through such a similar journey on their way out of Christianity with all of those like feelings of worthlessness and everything. And it's just like, well, no wonder, because the entire time we're told we're worthless. So we're going to go into this adulthood feeling like garbage about ourselves and that we'll never be good enough. So why bother? Because that's what they told us.
So Steffany, again, sorry to interrupt, and I'm sorry, but why did you keep going? Like, it sounds awful. Why were you there then? Do you know what I mean? Like, if everybody was feeling like this, what compelled you to keep going?
So at that point, that's when, like, as a family, we all ended up switching churches. And so we ended up getting into the Baptist church. It was a very small one. And I had a really, really fantastic relationship with the pastor's wife. Like, me and her were really close, and she was always very encouraging and positive. And just as a whole, my family had a much better experience there than we had in a lot of these other places. And it was from there I made the decision to go to the Bible college that I did through, it was through their little devotionals. Actually, there was an advertisement for this specific place. But yeah, so for me, that was a much happier experience, I guess, because I was able to share things and I wasn't treated like garbage, but I was also the oldest girl in the group. All of the other kids were closer to my younger sister's age. So there wasn't really any other teenagers my age. So I was more or less one of the youth leaders. And then a lot of the kids were like my younger sister's age. So that might have had a bit of more of a, why I decided to actually like keep doing it, because I could have my faith and I could, do the Bible studies and stuff with the younger kids and be respected, and it wasn't like I didn't have to worry about all these little murmurs, because it was no longer like a peer-to-peer thing. It was either I was communicating with older people,
searching for a place to call home in terms of what you've learned, what you know, and what you're believing in. So I can understand that, because you don't just, because of the way how one particular church or faith has behaved, you just sort of dash the whole religious thing aside, unless you're already on some sort of other sort of spiritual journey whereby you're trying to sort of like join the two, or try and figure out, the gap or the middle. So I can understand that when you're growing and when you're kind of like learning, searching and reaching for something. Do you know what I mean? Because everybody's very, very different.
Can I say something though? I feel like Steffany is more rare in this, because most kids, I feel, are probably more like me, meaning, yes, I believed in God, yes, we went to church and whatever, but maybe that's where it stopped. And I was just in my childhood. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't take it so seriously. I was never drawn to go, I want to understand the book, the Bible, and all the different versions of it. For you, it's almost like you were an adult before you were an adult, and you took it so seriously that like it became your whole life. And so that is like such a huge difference. And I think most people experience. I mean, I know adults, grown grandmas and grandfathers who have never read the Bible, who have never connected in that way, who have never felt drawn to it. But for you, at such a young age, you were like, not only all in, you were like, I need to know everything. I'm searching for that Holy Grail and I need all the information. And so what was that pivotal point? Where was it a specific moment or something that happened where you're like, wait a minute, this absolutely doesn't feel right and I got to dip out?
Yes. So that did come after I was married. So that's a little more further down in the story.
Okay. So
we haven't even got to Bible school yet.
Yeah, I know. We'll get there. We're almost there.
Wow. Like
But no, it is true though. Like I always got along with people who were like older and stuff, like, my grandparents, and I think that played a huge role in it too. Like my dad's parents, when me and my older sister would go there for sleepovers, like we would go, at that point my grandma had changed to Jehovah's Witness, but they still had a great deal amount of respect for each other. So my grandpa was Catholic and my grandma was Jehovah's Witness, and we would take turns going to their different congregations. So
you come from.
Hold on.
This is what I mean. Like there's more.
So hold on a minute.
Yeah,
I've got to understand this. So you also had the Jehovah Witness belief system within the family.
Yes.
Wow.
Catholic, Christian, Jehovah's Witness. Anything else in that mix?
Yes.
Yeah, there's Judaism as well. Get ready for this.
Yeah.
Well, that's coming up.
Judaism. Yes, because you've got spiritual Baptist. Well, not spiritual Baptist, but you've got the Baptist in there. Mm-hmm. You've got Christianity as well in there. Catholics.
Come on, let's get on to Bible school, people.
Okay.
It gets more interesting after this.
Okay.
Yeah. So my young adult years, just before I went to that Bible college, I was in like another young adult group, but this was not like such a conservative thing. And this is kind of where my faith was challenged the most, because I would like stand firm in what I believed in. where everybody else was doing other things. And that's kind of where I had my first serious boyfriend too, which was like a whole interesting thing in there. But I think the biggest impact on my life during those years was a friend I made online. And it was the first time where my core principles were challenged to the same degree that I held them. And we were able to have these debates, but in a way that both of us left like, oh, maybe I should look at this differently. And that's kind of was the first friend I had ever had who just also was seeking truth over just wanting to be right in their own doctrine, because he came from a very conservative Christian world too, but it was a different denomination than I was. So, and he actually played a role in my college years too with just different things. But yeah, so when I went to my Bible college, I went a year late. Like I stayed like after high school, like I didn't graduate at 18 like everybody else. Like I went the next year. And so this place was in Florida, and it was like a 1-year program where it was just like Bibles, just like intense. So you go through everything. There's all kinds of different doctrines and stuff introduced. And the second year was even a little bit more weird because some of their professors didn't seem like they were very well vetted against the theologies that were held to in the school. But both years, one of the biggest, and I had been talking to Rachel about this, I would often like go up against my professors, and I would say things and kind of get the little like head pat, and you don't know what you're talking about. And it would enrage me because, like, you know, especially with that one friend that I had, we could have these discussions and have this open discourse about things and it still be respectful in each other, you know, walk away having learned something. So I would watch all of the males who would ask questions be respected and a conversation be open. But anytime I would, it was like, you're not allowed to talk, because in that world, a woman is supposed to be submissive. A woman is supposed to be quiet and reserved, and she's not allowed to talk in the church. This was that type of thing. Like, women, you can teach other women, you can teach children, but if you're in front of a man, you don't have a right. Your views on theology or whatever he says that they are. And that was really difficult for me, because at home, I could have these talks. It was never a problem. You know, like that was not something, that was never the dynamic in my household. My mom was always the more spiritual one, you know, and my dad came along later, and they were able to, you know, have these open communication about things. So that's kind of what I was used to. So what it was like, now I was in this ultra conservative place, a school that I chose because I wanted to, but now faced with this whole, I mean, there was the culture shock of being in the States for one too, because that was a whole, conservative Christianity in the States is very, very different than conservative Christianity in Canada. So that was like just a whole experience in of itself. But yeah, that was the biggest thing, is anytime I would say something, it was never respected. And I would be angry. And this got to the point where there was a discussion during one of our, I think it was our like extra, like the other religious studies. And one of the things that I had discovered in my high school years was where like the origins of Christmas came from. And so from an early age, I was just like, Christianity and Christmas don't actually mesh. And I had posted this paper that they failed me on it because I was challenging the fact that Christians shouldn't celebrate Christmas, and that in reality, we should be observing Shabbat, because that never went away. He said that was an institution forever. So I was like, these are the scriptures that back up my claims. And it was like, you totally missed the point of this study. And so I ended up putting it on my Facebook, and I got in so much trouble, and they told me to take it down. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. How come I'm not allowed to talk about the Bible at a Bible school? You know, right. And it was like, I was trying to uncover these truths that I was finding.
Kylie, I'm telling you, the shit that's going to come up, man,
I'm
it's just
have
going to
an
make your
aneurysm.
brain.
Like,
no,
I'm literally itchy hives.
I'm not joking.
Blacking out.
It's
I'm
like,
going to hyperventilate.
It's like I have to say the thing that just hurt me the most from the 2-hour chat with Steffany.
No, don't say it.
I don't know if we're going to get there.
Oh,
I don't know if we're going to get there. And it's definitely even relevant to this. But like, this is the thing that honestly snapped my brain, Kylie. So you and I can just snap our way together, and then I can release the tension.
But can I
The
just
woman
throw
doesn't
in
own
there?
her
Why
own
do
body.
we think that?
The woman does not own
No.
her own body, Kylie. The man does.
And that's right. But that's always been the case. Why?
See, I just did not understand.
Why are you
I
surprised?
didn't understand.
But we're in the like 1990s at this point, right? 2020s at this, like 10s, 2000s at this point that Bible school happened.
2009, I graduated.
Like,
We're in
this is
2000
bullshit.
Yeah.
Because I'm sorry,
But we're in 2025. And that
freaking
stuff is still going on.
1940s. God, go punch everyone. Okay, go on.
No, it's so
That
intense,
stuff
isn't it, Kylie? Like, honestly, like, sexually, your body is not your own. Try that on. I mean, I can't even
I'm
cope.
not.
I just
Well,
can't cope.
you know,
Can't cope.
I don't find it surprising. And
Right.
but what I find so interesting is that is such a thread through the fabric of the reality that we live in. So, you know, I'm finding it really interesting to connect the dots of where a lot of things potentially originated here.
Yeah.
And I think that would speak to a lot of people, no matter, you know, about your religion, your beliefs, whatever it is. So it's very significant.
At what point are we accept
but look,
we accept that? You know, like what woke
but
us up
look,
to not
within the
accept it?
Catholic religion, but within the Catholic religion, I don't know if it's still now or up until when, women, you know, contraception is not allowed. You're not allowed to be taking contraception. It was not available. It was not available. So if your husband wanted to, you know what I mean, get you pregnant 13, 15, 16 times over, that's why so many of them had so many children. Do you know what I mean? Was that their choice? Probably not. I don't think any woman wants to have 16, 18, 20 kids. You know, but that's how it is. You're not allowed to determine that for yourself or for your body. You're not.
Yeah, because
God
they take
forbid
that
anybody tell the man, wrap that pickle up. It's, you know, it's not even a pickle,
because
is
they
it?
point that back to the be fruitful and multiply, right?
That's a new shirt. Write that down.
Sorry, say that again. What's
Go
what?
I said
forth and
because
multiply.
they take that back to the scripture of be fruitful and multiply, and they don't realize that that doesn't mean be like a bunny rabbit, you know, like there still has, and that's actually one of the biggest differences too that I realized in Judaism versus Christianity is there is still a respect for women within Judaism. There's not in Christianity. And it's all the Christian scriptures that are telling you the woman doesn't own her body, that she has to, you know, give it up for her man, and that she needs to be quiet and that she needs to be submissive and she has no role of speaking in the church. That's all Christian ideology. And it was actually a lot of these things like Lauren had touched on, when you see this so interwoven in our modern society. My aha moment was like, because I was so invested in the end time study, and so much of that has to do like all these images, right, of, you know, different beasts and this woman and all of this stuff. And when you realize how much of that actually parallels a lot of, I don't mean to offend anybody, American conservatism, you realize where a lot of these ideas from Christian beliefs really were able to just flourish is because of the culture that is so deeply rooted in Christianity within America, you know. And it's like they're the ones that kind of let these things take off. And it was a lot of these things that kind of made me start realizing I didn't want a part of that anymore. And obviously this was years down the road. But yeah, it just.
So did you leave Bible college or did you get kicked out?
So I left, and I did leave early, and I almost didn't come back halfway through my second year. Because so my first year was pretty good, all things considered. I was more or less still allowed to be me. And then when I went to the New York campus for my second year, only a handful of us did the second year, and the New York campus was bigger. And so it was a mix of most of the kids who were in our second year had been in first year. And that was a whole other culture shock, because their whole just everybody on that side of America is way different than in like the South. And like, it's such a weird thing because it's like, you think, oh, it's just over the border. It's not going to be it's a lot different, even between states. It's a lot different. And so I actually, for my second year, went into the RA training, the resident assistant training, to be like, you know, one of the little like dorm oh, sorry, that was another thing. During my first year, I actually got written up for like demerit points all the time because of my figure, because there was a dress code and I never broke the dress code, but because and especially because I put on a little more weight, so I was a little more curvy and all of this stuff, and like my family wasn't made of money, so it's not like I could just go buy a whole new wardrobe. I would get written up all the time, but every time I was able to talk my way out of it using, you know, different logical things and whatever. But the one biggest like thing that got me off of everybody's never go to try to break her up again was there was a bunch of girls, and a few of them were RAs, who went skinny dipping one night. And just for background, at this school, it was a very strict, like we had to wear dresses and stuff to class. No girls and guys were allowed to touch each other. If you went out, you had to have a chaperone. Like, it was very, very, very strict. We couldn't go to the movies. We couldn't listen to music unless we wrote a whole paper on the type of music and how it was godly and all of this stuff. Okay. So just to kind of get that all out of the way. So they went skinny dipping. All of these girls who were supposed to be the little perfect ones in the school. And one of these girls came to me one day about my bra strap slipping out of my tank top, which was the 3-finger width it was supposed to be. And I just looked at her and I was like, you're telling me after you went skinny dipping that you've got a problem with the way I'm dressed? And then that was, she tried to, and I was like, no, I have no respect for you after that. I was like, you have no right to say these things to me. Like, this is done. I always make sure that I am doing what I'm supposed to do. And I watched all of you girls do that. You have no right to come to me again. And that was it. And later on, we ended up becoming like really good friends. And she actually also eventually journeyed out of Christianity too. But it was just like, because like I said, I was a very good, like a ridiculously good girl. And so it was just outrageous to me that they were always like coming at me over stuff I can't control, you know, like you can't control the body you're given. You know, and if people have a problem with that, anyways.
Oh, fuck, Rachel, hold me.
I don't like you can't even act like you saw me. I ended up pacing around my kitchen while I'm
now I
talking
understand.
I don't even know what to do with this. But it's like there's something about Steffany that I feel like her gift is something like telling, like, I am an old lady. I know all of this information, but I've never experienced it viscerally like I do listening to Steffany. And it's never made me honestly want to start punching things up. You know, it's so,
welcome to my
I don't know what it is, but is it, maybe it is for you because you've got daughters, but I don't have any of that. And this just shocks me.
Can I just say something though? Because you can see in the certain use of language, like how you said, I was a good girl. Mm-hmm. Even that shows a certain amount of conditioning. What is a good girl? Because what does a good girl mean? Well, I followed the rules. So if you don't follow
didn't cause any trouble,
you know,
no bra strap showing.
Yeah, then you're you know what I mean. Then you're a bad
so
girl.
Good you wouldn't have known I was there.
Yeah. And that, you know, and even that still shows a certain amount, like just using that, I was a good girl. That's really quite.
It's funny that you bring that up.
That's the conditioning. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's one of those things with my kids that I early on in my parenting experience with my ex, I said, we are never going to use this phrase. You are a good boy. You are a bad girl. And it was like, you know, it's one thing to comment on, okay, what you did is not okay, but you never call them good or bad, because that just creates a whole level of weird thinking.
Yeah.
In my opinion, personally.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to get to what the straw was that broke the camel's back.
Okay. So that has to fast forward. That didn't happen until the 8th year of my marriage. So
8? You really do persevere with a lot. Can I just say?
So yes, the way I came to realize that a few years ago was I have a sick inability to give up. It's actually disturbing.
I promise you to be
So
your
if
strength
I
and your
give-
weakness, like all of us.
Mhm.
So if I give up, it's bad.
Good to
Right.
know.
You're a
Good
good
to know.
sticker, Atta.
Good to know. Okay, we get to push some buttons. No, but okay,
Yeah.
please continue with 8 years.
Okay. So you want me to just where are we with now? Oh,
I don't
okay.
know.
So
Like,
you
this
want
is
me to
what I
jump-
mean. We're either going to finish the schooling thing and make your married life a different episode, or we're going to skip that bit and close in on where we're up to now.
I don't know.
I think
I
we
don't
ought
know
to
you
if
make
I
it
reckon?
can
an
take any
episode.
more of this
That's been-
conversation.
I know it's tough. I think we finish off Bible school and we
But-
get you back for
but-
the marriage bit.
Well,
You
can I ask
can't-
a question?
you can't
okay,
tell
right.
half the
Was there
story.
any?
Okay.
Yeah, you can't
I
talk about.
understand
Sorry.
that.
So can I ask,
Okay.
like, was there at any point in time, like, say, like at college, well, where you were, that you ever just thought before all of this, two fingers up to all of this, because none of this actually makes any sense to me, and if I keep on being shut down, like, I don't want to be here. Was there any point in time in your studies whereby you just thought, I don't want to be here? And can I just throw in another question? Was there any time in you going through the Bible, did you ever think, well, where's the women? Where's the women?
So-
How has it been that throughout time, it's all about the men? Where's the women?
So that was, and that is, like I said, something that does come a little bit later on for me, because I could see how in like the Tanakh, there are women present and they were respected, whereas in Christianity, even though there's a couple thrown in, there's little side notes, and they're also like, shut up, please, just do what you're told. And they're only allowed to speak if they're in the presence of other women and all of that stuff. And so you're brainwashed into believing that's your role, right? And if you want to be a godly woman, then you need to be submissive, you need to be quiet. And this really affected me my second year. That's when I shut down as a person. That's when I stopped being argumentative. There was a distinctive point in my whole journey there where I can't remember which class it was specifically, because actually during my first year we had a women's class, and the lady who graded our papers loved mine so much she actually took me out for coffee just to talk about it, because it was a viewpoint that she hadn't heard, and she told me there were certain things she probably should have docked me for, and she didn't. I got the highest score in the class because of that. But then during my second year, all of that shut up Steffany specifically was so much more enforced in every area, in my drama class, in the choir, just all of it. And any time I would speak, there was one day in a particular class I was talking, and the professor was just so out to lunch that two of my other classmates, who were both male, ended up speaking up. And the one got so angry on my behalf, we actually were told to leave the class. And it was just like, it was so like, yeah, it was just like outrageous, but it was like these moments that I was just like, okay, like I can't keep disrupting things. They're not going to listen to me. So maybe I need to just accept the fact that whatever this strong will in me is, I need to just redirect it into something else. And that's kind of where I started focusing more on my relationships and like the peer-to-peer things, because during my second year I went through the RA training and told that I wasn't it was nothing to do with me, and God has bigger plans for you, but you're not fit for this. And that was like the overarching theme, is that, well, this is obviously just not what God wants for you, and just all of this stuff, and you need to learn how to not speak up so much, and you need to learn how to keep things to yourself. And this was actually the dynamic that made my ex, who we were really good friends our first year, but there was a moment during that first year where he said, because of something I said, I'd never date that girl, changing that from somebody he would actually want to pursue. And that was the shut down, less argumentative version of me. And so that's what persisted for those, initial 8 years of my marriage was
Oh,
me.
Carla, we need to hold each other's hands, I reckon. I think you and I just need some physical comfort. Oh, God.
It's funny.
I'm lightheaded.
You
I'm
keep
literally
speaking.
lightheaded.
And all I keep thinking is she's got 5s and 11 2s, 5s and 11 2s, because you're just like, you keep getting shut down, but you're still like, but 100%, you don't stop at all. And right, thank God for that, because it's interesting to me how you said, I give up. Like once I give up, I give up. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't hear you giving up on anything. I hear you like going and going and going. And you're like, I'm going to get the truth. I'm going to keep saying what I need to say. Hello, speech is all about the 5. So the fact that you just kept going. So we need to keep going. Please keep going.
On that note, just fast, one of the things me and my best friend used to say to each other when we were young is if we lived in a different lifetime, we would have been the revolutionaries, because that's like the spirit that we had, was just like, we have our thing, we fight for the ones that we love. And at the end of the day, like, the truth of all of that is what needs to prevail. But that like spirit in me is definitely quelched for a very, very long time. And I ended up doing what I needed to do because I made the choices, and within the belief system that I had adopted, I was trying to make do with in the best way that I knew how, by loving my husband, raising my kids, taking care of my home. And I did that to the best of my ability, but it did break me. When you put so much time and energy into something and then you realize like so much of it just wasn't, reciprocated or any of that stuff. And it just really wears down on you. And so I guess that turning point for me with the faith thing is, so we actually went through Messianic Judaism first, which was incorporating Judaic feasts and belief systems with Christianity. And the interesting thing is that even within like the regular teaching that I was learning at school, it was like, if you wanted to study the Old Testament, they would tell you to be careful. You weren't allowed to look into other religions. Okay, that was a given. But you were also told to be careful with what you were reading in their own scripture. And that one I never understood. And so I made it a point to go back and try to see, how do these things actually incorporate? Did Jesus actually really get rid of all of these feasts and traditions? And nowhere in the New Testament scripture does he say it. And this goes back to the whole like Council of Nicaea. So many of those things were created in that moment that weren't actually what, like, for one, that the New Testament even said. But then also it just so much of it was so messed up. And at the end of the day, I was just like, I want to know what the truth is. And the more I compared the Old Testament with the New Testament, the more I realized they don't comport. They don't work. And there was an aha moment for me. I was listening to a particular rabbi, and my ex was also listening to stuff at the same time. And once I went down this one particular rabbit hole with this certain discrepancy, I was just like, hold on, this is it. Like, this breaks absolutely everything. And I can't ever look at this the same. So that was like, that for me, that was my, like, I'm done with Christianity, and I didn't know he was studying this at the same time. And I came to him and we were both like, okay, so what do we do? For him, he had a harder time. I mean, he was a pastor's kid. So that was his whole life from the time he was born. For me, because I was never into what's right, I was just like, once true is true, it just, it just clicks. And so that for me was that kind of like peak. It's like, once I found out there was an untruth. Yeah. And so I just couldn't go back. And so that's kind of where the Judaism comes in. So that's actually stems from my maiden name and my father's lineage. And for me, those things still resonate. Like, I still observe those feasts and stuff with my kids. And there's particular elements of, I don't subscribe to any sect or religion. I have my certain like sets of beliefs based off of who I think, God or source or the creator is. And that's kind of, my kids are raised knowing what faith is and all of that stuff, but there's no strict like religious.
So
it's not a prescription.
Right. So Steffany, can I ask you?
Mhm.
Yeah. Was there at any point in time, like even now, that you've ever considered the fact that you've been lied to?
Oh yeah.
In terms of
that was the worst part of it.
Of it and everything that you've been lied to. Yeah.
So especially going through my divorce process, when all of that broke down, because you realize all of the stuff in that particular set of religious world, the stuff that you're taught with, right? Like, oh, you need to get married. And there was a point of contention with me and my parents around my marriage, and me and my ex eloped because of this. Because even though my parents were saying, like, you guys should think about some things, all of the other people in our religious bubble were saying, no, this is what God's will is for you. This is what you need to do. And in my heart, I knew it wasn't. I knew it was. And there was a moment where I did try to call it off. Something happened. I threw my ring at him. I'm like, I'm not marrying you. I can't do this. And, but once again, the religious male figures in our life were like, no, you can work through this. And if you work through this, your marriage is going to be so strong. And his father asked me to just forgive him and push through this. We weren't even married yet. We were not even married yet. And they were saying, I need to do this, that this choice isn't really mine, And at this point, like I said, like I didn't have...
Kylie's going to pass out. Look at her. Sorry.
So,
Kylie's got a fan going.
Kylie, I can't hear you.
But the worst part of all of this was too, is that in all of that, they actually told me that my parents were not the voice of God in my life, and I didn't need to listen to their advice. The people who raised me. Okay? And so
who was the voice of God? So, but who had they put in place of that? They were.
So
were they the voice of God?
Yeah. Yes, they were the ones, because that's where we met and all of this stuff, and they pushed.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you how many people we knew from that school who ended up divorced. Tons and tons of kids, and the same thing, and a lot of them didn't last the first 5 years. Like, it's a higher rate than like the average rate. I maybe know like a handful of couples that are still together from those schools. Like, it's horrible, because then they're pushing you, and then when push comes to shove and shit blows up, nobody's there.
No support.
Nobody's there to help you through it. And you're left with the aftermath of the broken relationships because so other people that we went to school with had the same issue with broken families and all of this stuff because of the guidance that we were given from these higher ups, because they went to their colleges and got their degrees. So they were the ones that had the authority to say what we should do and what we shouldn't do. Yeah. No, I see now looking back, I'm just, if anybody did that with my kids, like, and I can't, like, and that's the thing, like, I can't believe the amount, obviously, like, that's something that we had to work through, like me with my parents, but that was hard. That was really, really hard. But just from my perspective of just always wanting to do, what God wanted me to do. And if all of these people who know what they're talking like that, you don't realize how brainwashed you are. You don't realize all the lies you're fed until you're out of it. And I tell you what, the depression that caused, the anger, like I had to work through so much of that. And just like, there were days where I would just be going about my stuff and I would just be like, fuck this person, because I would just like, I would realize how much their words ended up negatively impacting my life. And it was just, that was such a, like, that took a couple of years for me to actually like work through, and it's just, people don't realize like how much trauma religion can induce. And it doesn't have to be what you're raised with in your home. It's those outside sources when you're just trying to follow your truth and you're trying to seek out the best path for your life. They start coming in and shaping you because you're at a vulnerable age. Like, it's heartbreaking to see how many of the people we knew went through this same experience and had this whole like, you know, deconstruction process afterwards, and the relationships that blew up from it. Like I've had a few friends over the years that I hadn't talked to that just I randomly thought of you, so I wanted to message you, and then we're like, oh my gosh, we're on the same journey too. Like, and it just, at one point, one of them was like, we should have like a support group for those of us who left, because it's insane. And it's also unfortunate to know that some of those people didn't make it out, you know, because once all of that stuff hit, it's just too much. And if you don't have the type of constitution of, okay, I'm going to make this work no matter what and keep going, it's devastating. It's absolutely devastating.
You know, can I chime in here for a second, really quickly?
Oh, please. Yeah.
I'll try to be really quick. So
No, don't be quick.
I have some friends who are in a particular church, and I'll out of respect for the church or not respect, whatever, not share, but they are questioning. They were raised in this religion, and they are now at a point, and I'm seeing they're like, we're thinking of leaving, but if we say this, like, we don't have friends, we don't have support, we're being outcasted from anyone who does not subscribe to this religion, we have no one to go to. And they've found me through TikTok, and my kid goes to school with their kid, and they're like, oh my God, can you please tell me, is there any, like, what, we're not allowed to know what heaven looks like. Is there a heaven out there? Is there ghosts? Like, what is, like, they're asking me all these random questions. And I'm like, how do you get to 40 and not be inquisitive and curious about what is out there? But that indoctrination and the manipulation of, we're going to segregate you from everything you know and everything that you want to know, because that's not godly, and you're going to go to hell because you don't subscribe to this. Everyone over here is sinful.
Correct.
They're like so scared to sneeze. They're, you know, like, I couldn't believe what I was hearing, the stories, like undergarments not being worn and how scandalous, and how they were kicked out because of certain garments. I'm just like, you understand that you're allowed, you have permission to go and explore other things. You're allowed to Google. God's not going to judge you. Like, what point is that power of God's, you know, word being passed down? What makes everyone so fearful of branching out of that?
It's the straight and narrow path.
I just don't
That's why.
But it's so much safety in that, and I just don't understand that.
Because
but a lot of and a lot of people require that container to feel good. Like, oh, I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing what God wants me to do, X, Y, and Z. And a lot of religions, and a lot of religions say ours is the only true religion. Ours is our only true God. And you can't look outside of it. It's a sin and it's wrong. And only you're going to heaven and they're going to hell. And you're like, what?
It's a fear that they instill.
Of course. I remember as a kid being like, this doesn't make sense to me. What because I'm Christian, I'm correct, but everyone else is wrong. That doesn't, my God is an all loving, all forgiving, all everything beautiful God. He's not going to say, well, you know, you were Catholic or Muslim or Jewish or whatever, and so therefore you don't have a place here. That's absolutely crazy. It's just as crazy as when the priest said, if you don't come to church on Sundays, God's not going to know you when you get to the heavenly, you know, the pearly gates. And I'm over here like 100%. And I'm like ready to run out the chair. Like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, but
it's wild.
But Yana, in the Bible, God has been redesigned. It's not, although the words on paper say that we were designed in God's image, how the Bible has been created is as if God has been designed in our image. So God is not all forgiving. He's not all of any of those things. God's angry. God's a jealous God. God's a mad God. God's going to bring fire on you. God's going to send you to hell if you don't follow what he has decided for you.
But isn't that the first
gets told?
Isn't that the first testament? And then the second testament is no, I'm saying it wrong. Okay,
see, this is a common misconception, because that's how a lot, even in Christianity, they view it. But if you actually examine the New Testament scriptures, they're the ones that actually in the New Testament theology kind of induce this view of how God used to be on people. But it's when I first read the book of Deuteronomy with a different perspective, I was crying because all I could see, especially as a mom, for the first time I saw that no, the God back here is a loving parent, just saying, can't you just choose what's good for you? If you choose what's good, your life will be good. You know, whereas in the New Testament, they're telling you, no, you can't be good. You can't be good. And before he was just going to kill everybody, but now he's going to give everybody eternal life. And it's like, no, that's nowhere back there. All of the prophets, it's the same thing. It's like, just choose the good thing. You can do this. It's not too hard for you. Like there's a whole discourse on how what he has planned for people is not hard for them. They just got to do what's right. You know, choose the good thing. And that was, for me, that was such like a paradigm shifting thing because you're not taught that the God of the Old Testament is loving.
So can I just add in? So with the rapture that's, past, hello, we're still here. Do those people go off the deep end and go, fuck it, I'm going to go have, sinful things at this point?
So
like, does that?
I actually didn't hear about this because I've been so far removed from so much of like, I have not been watching news or anything for a good long, because I just needed to
Good
I don't
for
want
you.
because I used to be
Yeah,
obsessed
same.
with all of that stuff, right? Especially because that was my focus, was end times. So once I got into Messianic Judaism, every feast year, it was like, we're going to look. And so that whole sense of impending doom, by the way, overtakes your entire life. And it's a weird thing to realize I don't need to focus on the future. I need to focus on right now. And that's why, like, where I am right now, I'm just grateful to get to tomorrow and taking one day at a time. But that was a very big thing to take away. So yes, some of them do just go berserk when that kind of stuff happens. I'm kind of disappointed that I didn't see what was going on because I probably would have gotten a kick out of it. Because I've never seen like it on mass scale before. The fact that TikTok was talking about the rapture.
We would do if we were good girls and then we were given like God's lied to us and we're not going anywhere. So now fuck it. We're going to go,
Well,
like
honestly, I can't believe this is what I find extraordinary. And getting it back to Yana's with her number energy is like this double one energy with Steffany, that as far as her faith has been pushed by the most disgusting circumstances, it just has only got stronger and tighter and more focused. And bizarrely, although I wouldn't wish any of the experiences that you have had, Steffany, I can see how it has absolutely galvanized you, and how you'd be the most extraordinary spiritual mother. That I can see the purpose in it. But I still think that I hope that you realize just how extraordinarily resilient you are to be able to get through this and not just chuck the whole fucking lot. Because I'm not joking. That I really think that anybody who would have seen what had happened to them would have just binned the whole lot. And well done you for being able to take what's yours and keep it.
Thank you. I think a lot of that too does have to do with me being a mother, because I look at them and they are beautiful little miracles, you know what I mean? And I look at them and especially with, considering like the soul plan stuff and all of this stuff, and just, there's no doubt to me that there is a creator, because I look at their little personalities and just the different little things, and just, yes, being a mom is so hard, but I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. And it's just like with I think it's interesting with what you said about just the different things that you wish that I didn't have to, like all of that stuff, because I've said, that's actually something that I have said before, is like, I wouldn't wish my experiences on anybody, but I wouldn't trade them for the world, because I know that I am who I am today because of every single little thing that I have had to go through and find my way through. And I also know that not everybody can do that. So that's not something that I take for granted. And that is one thing that as a kid, my mom said to me, because, I did have a tendency to push back a lot. And she said, God gave you a strong will for a reason, but it's not to be used against your parents. And
I love that.
Oh, Lauren and
I think
Yana
we're all
have to
gonna
use
use
that
that.
in their pocket. That's in their pocket.
I got one of those too.
I'm knee
And
deep in that.
so true.
So there's no freaking hope for me.
Can I ask you, Steffany, do you think that that what you've been through in terms of, say, religion and faith and stuff like that, and where you are now, do you think those were your healing years? As volatile and as contrast that we think it is, do you think those were your healing years, that there was a part of you that maybe came from other lifetimes or whatever that you needed to heal through? All of that doctrination, all of that conditioning, it was something that you needed to heal through in order for you to become the empowered woman that you are today.
Absolutely.
And that for
and
any
that's
other
one
life.
of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, because to me, that's one of those things, just looking at it, like, you don't go through anything by accident, right? Like, we all have choices to make. We make those decisions, and whether or not we choose to take the decisions we've made with grace and learn from them, or stay in bitterness, right? That's how we evolve as, human beings spiritually, and just all of that stuff. And like, at the time, obviously, it sucks when you're going through that stuff. But like I said, even from a very young age, there was stuff that I was going through, and I knew somehow, it would make it would make sense later on, And one of the things that the examples that I've given to my kids is, because I have a garden, and so we love to do that kind of stuff. And it's like, when you plant a seed, the only way that can grow first is if it dies. And you all will get to a point in your life where you more or less die in your own person, so you can come back as something more beautiful and strong and resilient. And for some people, it could take, a few elements like that. And I know for me, that was back in 2023. And that was my big death moment, and I knew coming back from that, I would never be the same person that I was. But it was also through that I was able to, get in touch with my inner child again, and start doing the things that I used to love doing, and just finding who I was again, because that had just gotten so buried, under all of the layers of soil and everything. And it just, and that was a very terrifying process too. Like, I mean, I almost didn't make it out of it. And that's why I say, like, my kids are my saving grace. And they're every bit, a blessing to me, and I wouldn't be here if it weren't for them. And so I know that despite all of the shit that I had to go through with any area of my life, but even like, I don't see my marriage as something that failed, right? It brought 5 beautiful kids into this world. There was a purpose for that, and it had its time, and then it ended, and I don't look at those years with any type of bitterness or resentment. And I never did, even during the process, despite how I felt going through all of those things, because I knew it served its purpose. And I think that is something that I have come to realize is such a gift, because not everybody can see things that way. And obviously not every day is a happy day and I'm positive. Like, for a lot of people, I have always been a negative. They view me as somebody negative because I'll just look at something and kind of immediately know how it can play out, like, in reality, right? And so sometimes people take those things as me being negative, but I also think that those are the things that help me get through a lot of those things, because I kind of knew the outcome beforehand. So I was able to, even though I didn't know how I was going to get there, I got there eventually. And there's some sense of like comfort in that, but the process is brutal. But definitely, yes, healing and transformative. So.
I love it. Yeah. Okay, listen, hold on.
Thank you.
We're going to have to put a pin in this, because I feel like we can talk about this forever. And I feel like you need to come back at some point so we can talk about more. Like, I'm fascinated by the Bible. I will say, I've tried to read it like a million times. It's never worked out. Something's always blocked me. And it's not that I want to read it because I want to know all the truths of the universe. I just want to know what has been put out there, right? Like you, like, I'm just that seeker and I just want to know. So we're definitely going to have another conversation. I don't know. Maybe the rods are involved. Who knows? But before
rubbish.
Yeah.
It's a whole load of just stories put together, and it's absolute, and it's been conditioned. The one thing, I'll just say one thing just before we finish, that might just, just sow a seed, food for thought. The Bibles that we look at now would always say to you a version. It's got different versions. That in itself tells you that it's not the original story. Because if it's a version, then whose version is it? And what has been taken out and what has been changed? What has been done? What's been put in? What's been edited? So that's all I'll say on that. Think on that. It's a version.
Yeah, look, I just want to know what is being said. I'm not saying I want to take it in as my truth. I just want to like be in the know. That's it. Okay. But before we close off, I do want to tell everybody, if you have Kylie, what is it that you do? You do your monthly
Astrological updates.
Oh yes, amazing. Okay, and then there's also, if you're looking on your screen, there is the link right here, right above my head, or not the link, the QR code. Go ahead and scan that. Be sure to subscribe to our new channel. Be sure to check out the collective, you guys. It is a 30-day membership. Come join it. We have so much fun. Kylie, what do you have for us?
So I did start with this deck because I'm like, we're talking about theology. I'm going to bring in Archangel Raphael by someone we will not mention. But then I'm like, no, I'm too angry for that. And we're going to go back to my favorite Rachel Campbell deck, Empathetic Starseed. And it's interesting because this is about energetic sovereignty. Right. This is about bringing ourselves back to our truth. And I'm not saying you shouldn't subscribe to God or whatnot. I'm just saying you will remember, Amanda's proud of me for saying that, but you will remember where your sovereignty is and what religion or God or gods you are going to subscribe to. That feels good for you, not being told to. Okay. Mute me now.
Steffany, thank you for joining us. It was such a pleasure.
Nice.
It was good to be here. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, and everybody,
Wow.
if you're interested in a reading, a healing, a guided meditation session, a light body activation, you want to say hello to Rachel, you want to find out all about the beauty behind every single one of us and what we do and what we offer, head on over to yoursoulwisdomshow.com. We thank you for allowing us to create this beautiful space, and we hope you have a blessed day. Bye, everybody.